Not all who wield the light cast away the shadows. This is the tale of Sebastian Aldana, once a feared Inquisitor of the Holy Order of Ethoras, a man whose name was spoken in hushed voices by both the faithful and the heretics alike. 4 years, he was the relentless blade of the Ethoran Inquisition, rooting out sorcery and blasphemy in the name of the light. His hands were stained with the blood of countless souls, some guilty, many more condemned by whispers and suspicion alone. He never questioned. He never doubted. Until the day he saw the truth. Sebastian rode into Cardibes, the great city of Castella, under the banner of the Inquisition. The Grand Council had sent him to purge a growing sect of apostates rumored to be practicing forbidden magic. Reports claimed they worshipped a false interpretation of Ethoras, twisting his teachings and spreading heresy. Sebastian knew what needed to be done. By the time the sun dipped beneath the rooftops, his inquisitors had found their lair, a forgotten chapel nestled between the ruins of an old noble estate. Torches in hand, swords drawn, they stormed the halls of the so-called heretics. But there were no witches. No cultists summoning demons in the dark. Instead, they found priests, men and women garbed in robes of white and silver, whispering prayers to Ethoras. Knights clad in armor that bore an unfamiliar sigil, a silver star. They did not fight, they did not flee. They merely watched as the inquisitors entered. "Brothers," one of the priests spoke, an elderly man whose eyes shimmered with a calm Sebastian had never seen before. "You have been deceived. It was a massacre." Sebastian did not wield his blade first. But his brothers did. His fellow inquisitors, men with whom he had marched for years, cut down the unarmed priests as if they were beasts. The air filled with the sound of steel striking flesh. The wails of the dying mixed with the prayers of the faithful. And amidst the chaos, Sebastian hesitated. Why do they not resist? He turned to one of the knights, a man who should have been his enemy. The knight had blood on his lips, his breath ragged from pain. Yet, with what little strength remained, he gripped Sebastian's arm. "You fight for the light," he whispered. "Yet you are blind." Sebastian saw something then, something that shattered the world he had built. The inquisitors did not just kill. They laughed as they burned sacred texts. They mocked the dying. He had fought alongside these men for years, believing them to be righteous. But there was no righteousness in their eyes, only cruelty. And as the last of the priests fell to the stone floor, Sebastian saw the face of the elderly man once more. He was still alive, crawling toward a dying knight, whispering a final prayer. Sebastian stepped forward, intending to end his suffering swiftly. That was when the priest looked at him, and the world turned to light. The fire around him dimmed. The screams of the wounded faded. In their place, Sebastian saw a great expanse of silver light, stretching beyond his sight. He felt warmth, not the burning of a pyre, but something deeper. Something he had never truly known. And then, a figure emerged. A warrior clad in silver, his face hidden beneath a radiant helm, stood before him. The air trembled with his presence, with a power unlike anything Sebastian had ever felt. "You have walked the path of flame and shadow," the figure spoke, his voice carrying the weight of ages. "But do you know the difference between fire that warms and fire that destroys?" Sebastian fell to his knees. He tried to speak, but his voice failed him. "You hunt heresy in my name," the figure continued. "Yet you are blind to the heresy within your own heart." A burning pain erupted in Sebastian's chest. He gasped, gripping his breastplate, but there was no wound. Only truth. And then the figure raised his hand, and Sebastian saw, truly saw, what the Inquisition had become. Not a force of purity, but of corruption. Not protectors of faith, but its executioners. "Rise," the figure commanded, "and seek the path of the true light." Sebastian awoke to darkness. The vision had ended. And in his hands, the dying priest had pressed a symbol of silver. A star. When Sebastian rose, he was no longer an inquisitor of the Ethoran Inquisition. His fellow inquisitors, still looting the bodies, turned as he approached. They saw the look in his eyes, the look of a man who had glimpsed something greater than himself. "What are you doing, Aldana?" one of them asked. Sebastian did not answer. He drew his sword. The battle was swift. He was outnumbered, But they were unprepared. The Inquisitors who had stood beside him for years died at his hands, their blood painting the stone floors. And when it was over, he turned to the last surviving priest, the man who had spoken to him before the vision. He was barely alive, but when he saw Sebastian standing over him, he smiled. "You see now," the knight whispered. "The light is not found in fire, but in what we choose to protect." Sebastian knelt beside him, taking his hand. "I see," he said. Sebastian cast aside the black and golden robes of the Inquisition that night. He abandoned the pyres, the gallows, the blind faith of those who refused to question. Instead, he took up a new path. A path of silver light, one that led him away from the Inquisition and toward those who still believed in justice. It is said that he rode for weeks, seeking the ones who bore the Star of Silver, the exiled warriors who had once been knights of the faith before the Inquisition branded them traitors. And when he finally found them, hidden deep in the valleys of Castel, they did not ask where he came from. They did not ask for his sins. They only asked, "Will you stand for the light?" And Sebastian, once an Inquisitor, once a hunter of heretics, knelt. "I will." From that day forward, he was no longer Sebastian Aldana, Inquisitor of Ethoras. He was Sebastian, Warden of the Silver Star. Some say he still walks the roads of Castel, clad in silver, hunting the corruption he once served. Others claim he was struck down by the Inquisition, his name erased from the records of the faith. But those who have seen a silver-clad warrior standing against the darkness, those who have heard his voice in the dead of night, whispering words of warning before striking down tyrants, they know the truth. Sebastian Aldana did not fall. He was reborn in the light.